So today I'm going to discuss the optimization in a single variable function. Now, I'll first start by introducing the concepts of local maxima or minima. Okay, so we have a function y equal to fx, which is defined on an open interval ab. So that means a and b, the two extreme points, are not included within the interval. So within this interval ab, we take a point psi. We see that the function y equal to fx has a local maximum at x equal to psi if fx is less than equal to f psi for all x in some open interval I containing this value of I. So, what I'm seeing is over here, is that I have some function over here. So this is an open interval. The function has a local maximum at x equal to so this is the local maximum. Okay, if you take a small neighborhood around epsilon. So within this neighborhood, if I consider the functional values, so that means I'm not considering the entire function, but only a part of it within this range. Okay, so within this boundary, I'm getting a maximum at x equal to psi. This is called the local maximum. On the other hand, if I take two boundaries like this, a smaller interval, then let me call this x max, psi max, and this is psi min. So over here, I have a local minimum. So that means I'm not considering the entire range of the function. I'm only considering the neighborhood around this point. Okay. Like for instance, we can see over here that we are identifying this point to be the local maximum. But clearly there are points over here which have higher functional values. The value of y is higher over here. So we can similarly we can define a local minimum using this condition that f of psi will be less than equal to fx when x is some point in the neighborhood of psi. So over here you can see we have taken a small neighborhood around x equal to psi, and this represents the maximum. Over here again we have taken a small neighborhood and this represents the minimum. Now obviously you can see over here that this is a point, this is a point where the value of x is greater than the value over here. But this is outside the neighborhood. Similarly, I have a neighborhood. Outside the neighborhood, there's a point like this where the value of y or the value of fx is lower than the value over here. Okay, but remember, that when we are talking about locality, we are only talking about the immediate neighborhood, not the entire function. That is why this is the local maximum, this is the global maximum. Okay. So if f of psi is the maximum, see, we can jointly call the maximum or minimum as extremum points. These are the two extreme points. So if phi as a function, f as a function of psi is the extremum over the whole range a to b, then obviously f has a local maximum or minimum at psi. Okay, so we can see that over here, a to b, we have a maximum point over here. Okay. So this will imply that we will also have a maximum point at this point. Over here, we are extending this to the minimum point. However, if you have a maximum over here, right, it does not necessarily imply that you will have a maximum in this range. Like over here, you can see that we have a maximum over here. There's another maximum over here. There's a minimum over here. There's a minimum over here. Okay. Now look over here. This is AB. You can see that we do have a local maximum, but it is just going up and up. Similarly, it is also going up and up in this side. Okay. So now we can distinguish between local maximum and a global maximum. So if you are considering a subset of the function y equal to fx and finding out the extremum point, maximum or minimum, then this is said to be the local maximum. If we change the interval, if we change the subset or range of the, yes?
Sir, for local maximum, there would be a very small area of range. And for global maximum, the entire range will be taken.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So if you take a range like this, for instance, I have a local maximum over here. But if I take a range over here, the maximum will be different. If I take a range like this, a point like this will be the maximum. Okay. So depending upon which subset of the function I'm taking, what range I'm taking, my maximum, my local maximum will change. So,
Sir,
wait a minute.
sir, can you?
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Sir, can you please explain the last slide once again, that note part?
Okay, let me finish this part. So
Yes.
what has happened is, over here we can see that depending upon the as we vary the range, we will have different extremum points. Okay, in this function I'm just showing the maximum points, but for minimum also, if I take this range, this is the minimum. In this range, this is the minimum. So depending upon the range I'm taking, the extremum points is going to vary. So therefore, our function is going to have multiple extremum points,
Sir,
local extremum points, depending upon the range which I'm taking. Yes.
sir, can we just consider it in this manner that the point where the slope is going to change from negative to positive or positive to negative, that will be considered the extremums or extremums or the local extremums. So just can we hold this as a thumb rule?
তোমার এখানেও তো সেই the slope is negative 0. Here is also the slope is changing from negative to positive.
হ্যাঁ ওটাই বলছি, মানে যেসব পয়েন্টগুলোতে চেঞ্জ
No,
হচ্ছে নেগেটিভ
no. So how? See, I'm not trying to define what is maximum or minimum. I'm trying to distinguish between what is local maximum and what is global maximum.
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা ওকে স্যার.
So the point that I'm trying to make is that depending upon the range I'm taking, my maxima or minima is going to vary. So therefore, a function will have multiple local extremum points. The global maximum on the other hand, as one of you have rightly said, considers the entire range of the function. Okay, so over here we can see that this value of the function, we have over here we have 3 maximum points, but this function, the value of the function over here is higher than any other maximum points. So the global maximum is unique because the range is the entire range, not a subset. We have a unique global maximum, but we have multiple local maximum. Similarly, for a minimum also, we will have multiple local minimum and multiple, but only one unique global minimum point. Okay, is this point clear? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So what if the
Yeah.
the subset is like the local minima and the global minimum is the same? So we
Yeah,
can have that.
it can happen
kind of
over here.
situation as well.
If
Yes,
I'm
sir.
taking this interval, you will have it same. I've drawn it somewhere. In fact, I've discussed these cases. So let me see. Okay, don't look at the writing. No, not this. Yeah, over here. So over here, I've shown you a global. I'm just discussing the case of maximum. So here we have a global maximum. This is, if you consider this range, this is also a local maximum. If I consider the range AB. Over here, we can see that the local max, this is the local maximum, but this is the global maximum. Here we can see that we have a global maximum. We also have a local maximum, but this is at the boundary. Okay, over here, we only have a local maximum. The global maximum does not exist. So we have different situations. The local can be equal to the global maximum. The global and local may differ. In general, the local maximum will always exist if you consider a range, but a global maximum may not always exist. Okay. So basically what I'm saying over here is that if I have a global maximum, right, then I will always have a local maximum also. Like over here, we can see that we have a global maximum. The global and local may differ within this range. The global and local differs in this range. In this, the global and local are equal. So if I have a global maximum, I'm always going to have a local maximum. But if I have a local maximum, okay, then the global maximum need not always exist. So let me see. If we have a local maximum, like over here, see, this is local. But if I look at a point like this, this has got a higher functional value than L. So obviously L cannot be a global maximum. But can I identify a global maximum? I'm just going up like this, on and on. I'm just going up on this, on and on. Okay, so as I reduce my value of X, the value of F is going up. Here, if I increase the value of X, the value of F is going up. So I cannot identify a global maximum over here, but within this range, I can identify a local maximum. This is what I'm trying to say over here. Okay, is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. No, a girl was asking. Have you understood?
Yes, sir. Now it's clear.
Okay. So you can see a definition over here. Sorry, this should be actually a minimum. I copied the wrong definition. But anyway, you just have to reverse the sign over here. So global maximum, if X star is greater than equal to all other values. Here, this condition holds for only the neighborhood. Okay. Now we come to Rolle's theorem. Now, when we are trying to prove Rolle's theorem, we will require this theorem, that if f is differentiable on an open interval AB, that is, the boundaries are not included, and a point psi belongs to AB, then f has a local maximum or minimum at psi. Okay. In that case, f prime psi will be 0. Okay, so f is differentiable within this range. Psi belongs to this interval, and the local maximum or minimum occurs at x equal to psi. Then we are going to have satisfied this condition, f prime psi equal to 0. So suppose that
can you
fx is...
explain the first line once again?
Which line? This one?
The first
Over here.
one, where if f is differentiable, the next one after that.
Okay, what I'm saying is that we have a function, we have an open interval over here, and the function is differentiable in this boundary. Okay, so it is differentiable on all points within this range. We are not considered with what happens over here. You can have a break, you can have a jump, whatever. But within this range, y is differentiable at all points. Okay, this is the first condition. The second condition is that you have psi, a point x equal to psi, which belongs to this interval. So psi lies between a and b. It's an open interval, so it will be a strict inequality. And third is this. It is a local maximum. Okay, so at x equal to psi, attains a local maximum. So in this function, well, it will not work, but let us assume it is a function like this. Okay. So that means over here, it's not very well drawn, but I hope you can understand. F prime is 0. This is what Rolle's theorem says. If we have these theorems, then okay.
Yes, sir. Understood.
Okay, now we come to Rolle's theorem. So suppose that fx is continuous on a closed interval AB. So the boundaries are also included within the range. Sorry. It is also differentiable within this boundary, but now we are taking an open boundary. So the points, the two extreme points, supremum and infimum, are not included. If if A equal to FB, then for some psi which belongs to this interval, open interval AB, f prime psi will be equal to 0. Okay. So we have drawn the function in a very special way. This is A and this is B. See, the functional values are same at A and B. So we start from here and we end over here. So within this you can have some variation, but it's going to fall back over here. Understood? FA is equal to FB. Okay. So then if we take some point in between, okay, suppose this is psi, at some point f prime will be equal to 0. That is, it will either be the function will either reach a maximum or a minimum. So if I start from FA, I end at FB, the same FA is equal to FB, and the function is continuous over here, differentiable within the boundary, then we will be able to identify either a local max or a local minimum in some point within the interval. Okay. So since y equal to fx, this is continuous on the compact interval AB, it follows that f attains a maximum m at, let us say, x equal to psi 1. And we are going to have a minimum at x equal to psi 2. Okay. So within this interval including A and B, we are going to have a maximum and minimum, psi 1, psi 2. Okay. Sorry, so this should actually be closed. Okay. Now let psi 1 equal to A and psi 2 equal to B. So we are considering the endpoints. Okay. Now remember that we had said that FA equal to FB. Okay. So if we just put A equal to psi, so F psi 1 will equal to F psi 2. The maximum and minimum will be equal. Right? What we are saying is like this. I'm starting over here, starting over here. So this is, let us say, this is the maximum, this is the minimum. I can reverse this. It will not create any problem. Within this range, can I have any point above this line?
Yes, sir.
Well, how? In that case,
Sir, because
A will become the maximum, not M. Right?
yes, sir.
Can I have a point like B? If I have a point like B, what is the minimum? This or this?
So B becomes the minimum.
Right. So I cannot have any point which is above this line. I cannot have any point which is below the line. So the function must go like this. Y equal to fx must be constant for all points between A and B. Right? So that means within this range, y equal to fx is equal to a constant. So what is the derivative of this? Derivative of a constant is 0. Sorry, just one second. Hello. अच्छा आपने कोई मार्टिन আমাদের সব ক্লাস চলছে হ্যাঁ আমি এক ঘন্টা পরে Okay, so if yes.
Sir, I have a question. Why are we taking epsilon 1 equal to A and epsilon 2 equal to B?
You can reverse it. It doesn't matter.
Sir, but we'll have to take the endpoints only.
No. If you reverse it, what will happen? This is the minimum and this is the maximum. So again, we cannot have a point like A. We cannot have a point like B. It is going to go like this. Okay. So in both cases, whichever we take, y equal to fx, this becomes a constant within this range. I don't know what happens after this. After this, maybe it is going up like this. Okay, but within this range, y equal to theta, and therefore the derivative of this will be equal to 0. Okay. So I have proved this for, this is not a general proof, but in the case when the extremum points occurs at the boundary. Okay. However, this psi can also be within this boundary. Okay, so the proof over here is when psi or the extremum points occurs is located on the boundaries A and B. But suppose psi1 is not an endpoint. Okay, it is an interior point. Okay, so it lies within A and B. It is not equal to A. It is not equal to B also. Okay. Now, we have said that if, let us prove this using a maximum. Okay. So, we have a local maximum at psi1. In that case, f prime psi1 will be equal to 0 using this theorem. If f has a local maximum at psi, then f prime psi equal to 0. Okay. Now, if psi2 is an interior point of AB, then psi2 belongs to AB. Similarly, using this theorem, f will have a local minimum at psi2, which implies that f prime psi2 will be equal to 0. Okay, so this theorem is really the crux. We can prove this part easily without referring to the theorem. But if psi1 is located within is an interior point, then we require this theorem. This will directly tell us that there is going to be some point psi where, so if we take a range, we are going to have either a minimum or a maximum point within this interval. This is what the theorem is saying, that if we take an interval, we are always going to have a point where f prime is equal to 0, provided that fx is continuous in this compact interval, it is differentiable within this interval. Okay.
Sir, how do I prove this one, that f dash epsilon equal to 0? This theorem? The last one.
80?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll come to the theorem later on. At this moment, let us take it for granted. Okay. But note this case. I've taken an interval AB. This is a continuous function. But is it differentiable?
Sir, no, I don't think, sir. Sir, there is a sharp edge, sir.
It is not differentiable at x equal to c. So therefore, the theorem will not hold. Okay, I'm violating the theorem. What did I say? It has to be differentiable within the range. This first condition is satisfied, but the second condition is not satisfied. Similarly, if I take what happens over here? The continuity assumption is violated. The first assumption is violated, so I need not go on to the second. Obviously, it will not be differentiable. If a function is not continuous, it will not be differentiable. Okay. So if I just find that it is discontinuous, I can stop over there. Again, the theorem will break down. But if I have a function like this, Okay, I've not drawn it properly. Sorry, yes. Then at some point over here, f prime is equal to 0. This is both continuous and differentiable. Okay. Now we come to the mean value theorem. Suppose that y equal to fx is continuous in the compact interval AB, and it is also differentiable on AB. Okay, so these two conditions must hold. It has to be continuous on the closed interval. It should be differentiable within the open interval. Then for some psi which belongs to the open interval AB, f prime psi is equal to fb minus fa divided by b minus a. What we are basically seeing is we have we take 2 points over here, AB, and we draw a secant. PQ is the secant. What is the slope of the secant? The slope, this is the slope of the secant. Think about it. This is the change in y. Okay, FB minus FA. So this part, this is del y. And B minus A is del x. Okay, so this is the slope of the secant. What the mean value theorem says is that the secant has some value. So if we move around like this within this interval AB, at some point, see, if we are at this point, this function, this curve will have a slope tangent given by the tangent. As we move along this function, the position of the tangent and its slope will change. But at some point, we are going to have a tangent whose slope is equal to this secant. So the slope and tangent will be parallel at some point within the interval. Okay. So as I've said over here, FB minus FA by BA is slope of the secant. F prime is the slope of the function at x equal to a. That is the tangent. What the theorem basically says is, at some point within this interval AB, the slope of the function y equal to fx will equal to slope of the secant connecting AB. That is, the secant and tangent will be parallel. Okay? Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, now this part can be written. We can just bring the b minus a over here and just simplify, just work around with this. So we will get fb is equal to fa plus b minus c into f prime psi. Okay. So although this is the mean value theorem, this is the form that we will use. Now we come to Taylor's series. Suppose we have a function y equal to fx. This can be approximated by a polynomial. That is why we are writing fx. It's not equal to, approximately equal to this polynomial. The subscript denotes that it's a polynomial of power n. Okay. So this polynomial will be a0 plus a1x plus a2x square plus a3x cube, so on till an xn. This is a nth order form of a nth order polynomial. But what are the values of a0, a1, a2? Unless we know them, we can't write out this function in this polynomial form. Okay. So let us take the approximation around x equal to 0. Okay, so we are setting x equal to 0. So if x equal to 0, all these will become zeros. So I only have A0. Okay. So fx is equal to fnx at equal to A0 when x is equal to 0. So therefore the coefficient value A0 is simply equal to f of 0. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we know what A0 is, but okay. So we have found out what A0 is, but what about A1, A2, etc.? To find these out, we have to take the derivatives of fx and the polynomial fn. Okay. So we assume that the derivatives of fx and fnx are equal at x equal to 0. So f prime x and f prime nx are equal when x equal to 0. Okay. Okay. So first let us find out the derivative. Actually over here, I shouldn't have written f prime x. What I'm simply finding out is this. Okay. So it's better if I correct this. Okay, so f prime, the first derivative is if you will be a1 plus 2a2x plus 3a3, this one. Second derivative will be, this will disappear, it will simply become 2a2. This will become 3 into 2. It's not 32, it's 3 into 2, a3x, and so on. Okay, and the last term will be simply, see, you can see that the term is going up. If I take the third derivative, this will become n minus 1, n minus 2. So the nth derivative will be factorial n, and all the x's will disappear. It will become simply an. Right? So this is the derivatives. So when x equal to 0, the derivatives of fx and f, the polynomial, are equal. And so I can write this. Okay, I can set this equal to fx. So all the x's will disappear. F of 0 will equal to a1. Sorry, f prime will be equal to a0. Do you understand? So what I'm saying is that I'm setting this will be equal to
Sir,
huh.
Sir, the function f and fn are same thing too.
এইখানটা আমার একটু ভুল হয়ে গেছে, আমার এই লেফট হ্যান্ড সাইড রাইট হ্যান্ড সাইডটা ভুল হয়ে গেছে, উল্টে যাবে। হ্যাঁ, কি বলছো তুমি?
বলছি স্যার, এই যে f লিখেছেন আর fn লিখেছেন, দুটো একই জিনিস তো?
নো, see I have a function y equal to fx, ঠিক আছে? সেটাকে আমি অ্যাপ্রক্সিমেট করতে চাইছি ইউজিং আ পলিনোমিয়াল। সো দিস ইজ দ্য পলিনোমিয়াল।
So the fx function is a different function.
It is a different function, but I'm trying to approximate this. I'm showing that it can be, the two will become equal in such if I choose a0, a1 in a particular way.
Acha. Sir, approximation means one. I mean, sir, this part is.
In that case, they will become equal. In that case, they will become equal.
Acha, in that case, they will become equal. Oh, okay, sir.
Or rather, they will become almost equal. That is better.
Oh, okay, sir.
Okay, so over here, f prime 0 is equal to this one. So what is f prime 0? This. It is equal to this. Now put x equal to 0 over here. All the terms will disappear. Right? So you will only have
A1.
A1. Over here, if
There
double
two.
prime x, yeah, this will be 2A2. And this will be what?
So n factorial dot an.
Yeah. So A1 is equal to f prime 0. A2, what is A2 equal to? Right?
Yes, sir.
And An is equal to okay. So this is what I've written over here. So try to work it out yourself. Arud, I've done two terms, A1, A2, but try to work out A3 and A4 yourself. Okay. 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 Now, the approximation, suppose n tends to infinity. Okay. So what I've done is, using these coefficients, using these values, I've simply written out, I've replaced A0, A1, A2 by these values. So instead of A0, I've written F0. Instead of A1, I've written F prime 0. Instead of A2, I've written this term. Okay. So I will get this expression. The polynomial becomes this. Right? Okay. Now,
Yes, sir.
I've simply replaced the values. You just have to check it. I can't show it in one slide. It will become too small. But I've simply replaced the value of A0, A1, A2, and so on. Now, when n tends to infinity, right, I can't write this term. Basically, this is going on and on and on, right? In that case, fx will convert, the polynomial will converge to fx in some cases. In that case, we can write f0 plus f prime 0. I'm simply writing this, but now it is going on as an infinite series. It doesn't have an endpoint. Okay? This is called Maclaurin's series.
So the last part, can you explain once more? Like how they are converging, that part?
No, I'm saying that in some cases, they will converge. They need not converge in all cases. In some
Oh,
cases, okay. Okay. Now, if you look at it, we had assumed that x equal to 0, okay, and then taken the derivatives. Over here also, we had evaluated the function at x equal to 0. But suppose we want to approximate the function at some other point. Not x equal to 0, but at some point x equal to x0. So that means we have to write the polynomial in terms of x minus x0. So what we had initially written was a0 plus a1x plus a2 x square. Instead of that, we will write a0 plus a1 x minus x0, a2 x minus x0 whole square, and so on, an x minus x0 to the power of n. Now, using Maclaurin series and setting the derivative of fx and fn equal at x equal to x0, we will get fx0, f prime x0, x minus x0. We are just replacing this in the polynomial. Okay. We are just using Maclaurin's term. এইখানটা দেখো, look over here, f prime 0, okay, into x. What have I written? F prime, I've written x0 over here. Okay, I'm evaluating at x0.
Sir, have you replaced the zeros with x0?
Yes. Instead of, I had written the Maclaurin's term when x equal to 0. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So look at the derivatives. These are all zeros. Okay. So I have replaced the zeros with x0. So look at it over here. All these are x0s. Okay. Achha. Instead of x, right, we are writing x minus x0. So x minus x0, x minus x0. Here we didn't have any x term. And it's an infinite series, so we don't have any n term. It's just going on. This is called Taylor series. Okay. So the Maclaurin series is a special case of Taylor series where x0 is equal to 0. The Taylor series is the generalized form. The Maclaurin series is the application of Taylor series when x0 is equal to 0. It's a special case. Right? Any questions? Okay. Now remember that we had said that it's only an approximation. Now we can improve the approximation by incorporating a residual term. Okay, this residual term is evaluated not at x equal to 0 or at x equal to x0, but it is evaluated at some point x star, when x star lies between x and x0. Okay, typically we write the remainder as in this form. Okay, when x star is equal to x0 plus. So I'm just writing this out again. fx0, f prime x0, okay, fx0, f prime x0, x minus x0, f double prime x0 by factorial 2 x minus x0 whole square, so on. Okay, so in the earlier slide, this just went on, but now I'm adding a remainder term, this Lagrangian remainder. Okay, fn, I'm just replacing this over here to make the approximation more accurate. Right? Now in economics, we generally use only the first two terms and the remainder, of course. So we have to focus on just this and this. In some cases, you will see that we will move to this, but generally we don't have to go beyond the second derivative. Generally, in extreme cases, we may have to go to 3, 4, so on. Okay. So what I've done is I have brought this term to the left hand side. Okay, এই টার্মটাকে আমি এইখানটা নিয়ে চলে এসেছি। This is just the Taylor series where I've taken the residual and the first two terms. ঠিক আছে? Okay. So what I've done is I'm bringing this term to the left hand side. So it becomes fx1 minus fx0. This is f prime x0. This is, now ignore the remainder. Don't focus on the remainder. This is del y, the change in y. What is this? See, dy is f prime into dx, when dx is the change in x. Okay. So I can write this as the differential dy is an approximation of the actual change in y. Sorry. The different the derivative dy is an approximation of the actual change in differential, which is del y. Okay. Why is it an approximation? Because we have the remainder term. That is why it's an approximation. We can think of it in this manner, that del y is equal to dy plus an error term, when the error term can be interpreted simply as the Lagrangian residual term. Okay, is it clear, everyone? Any questions? So I've just shown this graphically. If I take the function, what is the actual change in y? The actual, when I move from x0 to x1, the actual change in y is only this much, which I'm giving by del y. If I use the tangent, the derivative, I'm going to get an overestimate. It will be del y plus epsilon. You can see dy is equal to the actual value, which is del y, plus a residual term, which is a Lagrangian remainder. Okay. In case of a minimum, it will be del y minus epsilon. Okay. Okay. Now we come back to the mean value theorem. That is this. If we take an interval and draw a secant, at some point, the tangent and the secant will be parallel. Okay.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So regarding that overestimate and underestimate, no,
Yeah.
so like
Yeah.
if the tangent is above the curve, so it is always overestimate.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And when will the tangent be above the curve?
So
What will be the shape of the curve?
concave.
Yes. So if the curve is if the function is a concave function, you're always going to make an overestimate. But if it is convex, it will be an underestimate. Okay. Now, we come to the most important part of the chapter. See, in economics, what we try to do is we try to find out the best possible point. Yes. Did someone have a question? Okay. So at the objective in economics, any economic agent, whether it's a firm, whether it's a consumer, will have some objective, and they will try to either maximize or minimize this objective. We can state the objective in a mathematical form in terms of a function. So what the agents try to do is they try to optimize the function y equal to fx. X is the choice which the agent has to make. The monopolist, for a producer, for instance, has to choose output so that his profit is maximized. So that is why, as an economist, we are so much interested in extreme values. Now, we can have two types of situations. One is that we can choose from any value of x. It is we call this unconstrained optimization. The other constraint is, other situation is when there are certain constraints which restrict the value of x that may be chosen. So I may say that, the producer has a maximum capacity. He has invested in plant, machinery, he has a factory size, and he cannot produce below an output above, let us say, 10,000. So given this constraint, what is his output level that will maximize profit? We can have this situation also. This is called constraint optimization. So the difference between constraint and unconstrained will remain if we increase the number of choice variables. Instead of x, we can choose a multivariable function. So we have 2 or 3 variables. Y is a function of x1, x2, x3. So in that case, we will have a constraint optimization with multiple variables. Generally, what we do is we take a single function, a function with a single variable. We find out the optimization conditions, that is max or min. Then we extend it, we increase the number of variables, find out the optimum, and the third step is we impose constraints on the values of x1, x2, x3. This is constraint optimization. Okay, so in a one variable case, we generally don't study constraint optimization. Okay. Now over here you can see that in the first case, we don't have a maximum or minimum. That is in a global sense. In a local sense, of course, we can identify both maximum or minimum. In the second case, we have a minimum but not a maximum. And in the third case, we have only the maximum, not a minimum. Okay. Now let us try to find out what is the condition for a maximization, or what is the condition for an extreme point. So we are going to do this using a maximum. Okay. If you want to do a minimum, you have to follow the same method. So I will do the maximum, but please try to do the minimum yourself. Okay. So in the first step, we have taken a function, and let us assume that we have a maximum at x equal to x0. How can we find out this point? Okay. Now, what does it mean? x0 is fx is maximized at x0. What does it mean? It means that if I take some other x, then fx will be less than or equal to f of x0. That is the meaning of maximum. Okay. Now, using the mean value theorem, we can write this in this way. Okay. The mean value theorem can be rewritten like this. I'll skip through the mean value. What we can do is simply bring this over here. FB minus FA is equal to B minus A F prime. Okay, so FB minus FA equal to B minus A F prime. Okay. This is the mean value theorem. Now, let us focus on the left-hand side. We are focusing on only this part. Okay. We take a point x star, which is to the left of x0. Okay. So we can rewrite the mean value theorem in this way. F of x0 minus fx equal to x0 minus x f prime x star. This should be, what is the value? Because x0 is the maximum, this should be greater than equal to 0, right? Okay, now focus on the right hand side. See, x0 minus x into f prime. This should also be, since it is, these two are equal, this term will also be greater than equal to 0. Okay. Okay, now suppose compare between x0 and x star. Okay. What is the sign of this? We are taking this x is somewhere over here. So x has a lower value than x0. Therefore, x0 minus x will be positive. Right? Now, if this has to be positive and this is positive, this must also be positive. Right? So the slope over here has to be positive. Is it clear? Or will I repeat it?
Sir, repeat it, sir. Once.
Yes, sir, repeat it.
Achha, have you understood this part? We are saying that y equal to fx has a maximum at this point. Okay. Now focus on the left hand side. Okay, but this comes later. See, what we have said is y equal to fx has a maximum at x equal to 0. What is the definition of maximum? Right? This is the definition of a maximum point.
Sir, what is the meaning of when x is the other point? Other point means any point other than x naught.
Yes. It can also be equal to x naught also. That is why it's equal to.
Yes, sir.
Achha. by the mean value theorem, we have this. And this was on the right hand side. We just brought it to the left hand side. Okay, so I've just written the mean value theorem. Okay, now let us focus on the left hand side. So I'm taking a point on the left hand side, which is x, any point over here. What is this side? What is this equal to? What is the sign of this? Use this. What will be the sign?
So greater than equal to 0.
This is greater than equal to 0.
Yes.
Now this is the left hand side. Okay, so x0 minus x, this will also be greater than 0. I'm combining both of them. This is, if this is greater than 0, this must also be greater than 0, right? Now, x is to the left hand side of x0. So that means x is less than x0. So what will be x0 minus x?
Greater than equal to 0.
It will be positive.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if this is positive, what will be this?
Positive.
Positive.
Positive, sir.
Positive, but it can also be 0. Remember, this is, so it is positive. Okay. So on this part, the slope is positive. Okay. Now let us take the right hand side. If I take the right hand side, again by the definition, okay, I'm calling this x2. Okay, this is the mean value theorem. Now, what is this? Positive, negative?
Less than
Using
0.
this definition?
Positive.
By definition, this is positive. Therefore, this also has to be positive. Right? But look at x0 minus x2. What is this?
It is negative.
So, what is this?
Negative.
Negative.
So, two negatives, you are getting positive, right? So, what is the slope on the right hand side? The slope is negative, right? So, as I'm going up like this, I'm having a positive slope, right? As I'm coming down like this, I'm having a negative slope, okay? So at some point, if the function is both continuous and differentiable, at some point, there has to be a switch from positive slope to negative slope. Okay, and at the switchover point, what is the slope? The slope should be 0. So it's positive. As we are coming over here, it's negative. At some point, it has to be 0. And the switch. Now, where it's positive to the left of x0. Where is it negative? To the right of x0. So the switch occurs, must occur at x equal to x0. And at this point, the slope has to be equal to 0. Otherwise, you will not have, the continuity property will not be satisfied. So you can see over here that we have considered the left hand side. Over here, we have shown that f prime is greater than equal to 0. This is the right hand side. We have shown it is less than equal to 0. Okay. So by the continuity assumption at x0, we must have f prime equal to 0. Okay. So if we have a function with a local maximum at fx star, then it must be at x star, the derivative, the first derivative should be equal to 0. This is called the first order condition for maximum value for optimization. Okay. You can also show that f prime equal to 0 is the first order condition to find out the minimum value. Okay. So why are we saying first order? Because we are using only the first derivative. Why necessary? Because if you don't have f prime equal to 0, this will not be a minimum or maximum. But suppose f prime equal to 0, does it necessarily imply that this is going to be a maximum value? See, over here we have a minimum value. Okay. Suppose x star satisfies the condition f prime is equal to 0. Okay, so if we have this condition, take the first differential. If I take the first derivative, I'm going to get I'm setting this equal to 0. So I have 16 minus 12x plus 4 x square equal to 0. তাহলে x কত হচ্ছে? minus b, so 144 plus minus, sorry, this will be 12. This is 144 minus 4ac. So 4 4s are 16, 256.
Sir, how is that being 16x?
Yes, sir. In the first line, it will be 16.
Sorry, it will be 16. Sorry. তাহলে এটা দিয়ে করা যাবে না। Okay. So set x equal to 2 and what is the first derivative? It is 16 minus 4x square sorry, এটা আমার ভুল লেখা হয়েছে 16 minus this is the first derivative. If I put x equal to 2 we'll get 4 এটা হয়ে যাচ্ছে 48 এটা হচ্ছে 248 8 and 4s are 32. So f prime is equal to 0. Okay. Now, what is y at x equal to 2? Find it out, please. And also find out what is y equal to this will be 32 minus 248.
So at x equal to 2, y will be 16.
And over here, x equal to 3.
So 21.
This is 48. This is 27 and 4. 108, and this will be 3, 9, 27. $81.
21.
Okay, so we can see that f prime is equal to 0 at x equal to 2. But over here, we can see that if I increase the value of x, it's going to go up. The reason is that a function is actually of this shape. It is concave over here. And it is going up like this, so it is convex after this point. Okay, so when you are making the switchover, the switchover point is called point of inflection. Okay, so f prime equal to 0 may indicate an extreme value. It may also indicate a point of inflection. So if I have f prime equal to 0, this is not sufficient to ensure that we have found out the maximum or minimum point. So f prime is only the necessary but not a sufficient condition for optimization. This is another case where you have what is called a stationary point. But again, there's no maximum or minima over here. Okay, so f prime yields a stationary point. The stationary may be extreme, that is max or min, but it may also be point of inflection, or it may represent some other case. Okay, so I'll stop at this point, and in the next class, I'll try to discuss that, okay, we thought that we had found out the condition for maximization, or minimization, but we found that there are some problems over here. So how do we address these problems?